Hello, welcome to Dynamics Futures, the next era of business. Thank you for joining today. My name is Bill McGibney. I'm a director with the customer engagement practice here at Rain Group, and I'm here to talk to you today about measuring what matters. We're going to look at Dynamics 365 field service, KPIs, and dashboards. This is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. You know the saying, you can't manage it if you don't measure it. Um, and if you're anything like me, you're probably overwhelmed by the amount of things that can be measured in this day and age. All of the data and information that's out there can get overwhelming. So it's important to kind of narrow your focus on the things that really are important. And fortunately, Dynamics 365 Field Service is going to give us the tools to be able to do that and just improve the overall effectiveness of our field service organizations. So a little bit about Dynamics 365 Field Service before we get into it. It is one of several applications that's part of Dynamics 365. It's built on Microsoft's Power Platform, meaning it has access to a whole host of low-code tools that are meant to empower users, administrators, integrators, anyone working in the platform to be able to configure interfaces, automate processes, and of course, as we're going to be talking about today, view reports and analytics. So it comes with a lot of native capabilities that are specifically made for any organization that provides some kind of field service. So you'll have work orders or jobs that your customers are going to request. Those get assigned to a technician or some kind of a skilled resource who then goes to a physical location to perform a service. That could be an installation, a repair, maybe preventative maintenance, could be doing an inspection, something like that, usually being done to a specific asset or piece of equipment. So that's what we're talking about with field service. An organization that's using Dynamics 365 Field Service is going to be very interested in tracking KPIs specifically around things like operational efficiency. So, how effectively, how efficiently are we using our resources? You're going to be looking at things like a first-time fix rate. How often are we resolving issues on that first visit? Or the mean time to repair, which is the average time it takes to complete a repair. You're going to be looking at your technician utilization to understand what percentage of their time is spent on billable activities. You're also going to be looking at the overall customer experience. So tracking things like your customer satisfaction score or CSAT, your customer retention rate. When it comes to financial performance, obviously that's important as well. So we'd be looking at things like the revenue being generated by each technician, and then on the flip side, our costs. So what are our costs on each work order? That's going to include, the time to travel to the job site, the time to actually perform the service, the parts or products that are consumed while delivering that service, things like that. And then we're going to be looking at just the reliability of our assets. Which assets are performing well, which ones are incurring downtime. How much of our maintenance is preventative as opposed to reactive. So those are all the types of things that field service organizations are going to want to keep track of, and we're going to look at some of those today using the tools that are built into Dynamics 365 Field Service. It does offer several different kinds of tools that can be used to get you those reports. When we think about the different types of reports that are available, I would group them generally into about three broad categories: list views, dashboards, and then Power BI. And those are kind of in order of increasing complexity. So list views are very simple for end users to be able to configure and tailor to their liking, whereas dashboards get just a little bit more advanced. And then Power BI can be kind of advanced as you want it to be. So the level of flexibility and then also the degree of training that it's going to take to be able to set these up is going to increase as we go down that list. But I'll talk about some of the general differences here, and then shortly we'll flip over to a demo environment where we can actually take a look at these. But before diving into that, just want to clarify list views. This is here, because often when people think about reports, really what they're trying to get to is that they want to see a list of data. They want actual, rows and columns, like a structured format saying, just show me my list of whatever. It could be work orders, it could be accounts, contacts, bookings, right? But maybe I'm interested in looking at high priority work orders or work orders that are assigned to me or work orders in a certain geographic location. Those are all questions that I would probably want to ask. And then by getting the list returned to me in the application, then I can actually drill into each of those individual records and actually start working with them. So the typical kind of primary audience, and I'm being extremely general when I say this, because realistically anyone at the organization would likely get benefit out of all these different types of reports. But in very simple terms, the type of user that is going to be most interested in using list views is going to be someone that is actually working with those individual records. So those would be people like your technicians that are assigned to work orders, or the dispatchers that are getting those work orders scheduled out, or someone in purchasing who's responsible for making sure that we have the inventory to actually be able to complete those work orders. So they're going to really benefit from list views because it's going to help them filter down the database to those records that they care the most about, and then allow them to start actually working on that data. Moving on to dashboards. So Dynamics 365 has the concept of a dashboard, which is just a simple visualization. So now instead of just looking at individual records, it's going to summarize your data and allow you to view across a kind of a larger subset, kind of a high level pie chart, bar graph, something like that, to really quickly get you a visual and a quick understanding of the direction that our organization is headed in. Similar to, imagine you're driving your car down the highway. Obviously, you've got a dashboard that you want to be able to glance down at and understand things like, how fast am I going? How much gas do I have left in the tank? Same concept here, which is why we call them dashboards, right? It's just meant to be a quick glance. How are we doing organizationally? So you can do a lot with those Dynamics 365 dashboards, but there are also more advanced analytics that are available to us through Power BI, which is also part of Power Platform. These are reports that technically can be built outside of Dynamics 365, but then embedded within it so that users who are in the application can see those right there. So these are going to be your, reports that are a little bit more advanced from a visual standpoint. So not just things like bar graphs and pie charts, but you can have things like line graphs. You can have, you can have a matrix of data. You can embed maps. There's really a lot that you can do using the capabilities in Power BI. So these are things that can be, especially helpful for leadership at the organization, really trying to get a sense of what direction we're headed in. Do we have the right people, the right processes, and you can really make management decisions based on the information that's displayed in those analytics. So all good stuff. What I'd like to do next, though, is go on to the demo, and we'll take a look at some of this. So here I am on a list of work orders. This is a list view. So anyone who's used Dynamics 365 before is going to be very familiar with this because we use list views all the time. It's a great way to look through your data and figure out which record you want to start working with. I won't spend a lot of time on the details here, but I do feel like it's really important from a reporting perspective because there's actually quite a bit that you can do just with this list view to be able to get, actionable reporting insights. So, for example, this list view dropdown up in the top left is going to let me choose which list view I'm looking at. So I could be looking at all work orders, or I could be looking at just my open work orders. And just with that click, it immediately filters down the list based on whatever filters I've applied to this list view. So the list view determines which columns are shown here and also which filters are being applied so that I'm segmenting my data set the way I want to. But this is all configurable even as an end user. I can easily click on edit columns if there's additional information that I want to see here. So for instance, if I want to see a field, I've actually got a custom field in this environment called first time fix. If I want to see that, maybe even pull it up to the top here, hit apply, I'm going to see that right away there. So that's nice and easy. I also have this edit filters button. Another way that you can filter the list though is just by directly clicking on one of these column headers. So for example, if I decide I want to really focus on my high priority work orders or the emergency work orders, I can do that by clicking filter by, and then I'll choose those options, hit apply, and there they are. So really easy for me to get that information back. Another thing that I can do from here is click the export to Excel button. So if there's additional Excel functionality that I want to use, like pivot tables, something like that, really easy for me to dump this out to Excel, and then I can do whatever I need to do from there. Some other options that are available, which really are helpful from a reporting perspective, are the option to show a chart. So I can click the show chart button, select a chart from here. For instance, work orders by incident type. This is a pie chart that is letting me quickly see how many of each incident type I have in this list. So I can see these are fairly evenly spread out, although there are slightly more blower motor failures that I can see. If I click on that, it's going to actually filter my list so that I can focus just on those ones. It's also giving me the option to drill down by any field I choose, and then I can tell it what kind of chart I want to see that information in. So if I want to drill down by priority, right, this is now doing an additional filter to show that by priority, which is nice. Okay, just another example. I've got another bar graph here that's showing me my top 5 accounts. So this is a quick way of knowing that Atlantic Logistics has the most work orders open with us right now. So that's good to know. I may be able to do something with that information. Another thing I can do with these charts, which we're going to look at in just a moment, is I can pull these onto a dashboard where I can actually see multiple charts at a single time, kind of side by side. Before we look at that though, I also want to point out one other thing, which is this visualize this view button. When I click on that, it's actually going to open up right in my browser a Power BI report that's being auto-generated for me. So I actually don't have to go spend time building my own Power BI report if I want to get access to some of those Power BI visualizations. It's just basically taking an educated guess as to how I would want to see this information laid out. But based on the information I have in here, it's suggesting a few different bar graphs that might be helpful. And so I can interact with this and use it however I need to at that point. So again, very nice just because it takes no effort. You just click that button and it's going to automatically generate something for you that really could be helpful. Okay, so that's it for list views. What I'd like to do next is come over here to dashboards. So this is an example of a Dynamics 365 dashboard, meaning it's not built with Power BI yet. These are just built right into Dynamics 365. You can see the example here. It's actually showing some of those same charts that we saw on the list view, but now they're all in one place. Makes it easy for me to get to that without having to click through to multiple different list views. I've just got them right here. This is a layout that is all editable. So an end user can come in here and decide which charts they want to see. And if you want it split up into multiple columns, you can do that. There's also this icon to view records. So that's basically a shortcut to that list view that we were looking at earlier. So now I'm not only seeing that chart, but I'm seeing the list of records that are included there kind of side by side. So that's also a nice feature. So the advantages of these Dynamics 365 dashboards, again, is just the ease of use to be able to set this up. You don't need an administrator or a developer or anyone with any kind of advanced knowledge to be able to do this. You can come up here, click on New, go to Dynamics 365 Dashboard, and start adding whatever charts would be helpful for you to be able to see on your dashboard. All right, and then as you add more, you can actually quickly get access to them by just selecting this drop down and choosing one of the dashboards that you've already built. So that's an example of a Dynamics 365 dashboard. You may have noticed when I clicked on this new button that my other option here is a Power BI dashboard. And I want to show you some of those as well. I do have some built out in my sample environment that would be useful for a field service organization to use. The first one is a utilization dashboard. My demo environment doesn't have a lot of data in it, but it does go back a few weeks. And what this is allowing me to do is look at just how utilized were each of the resources on my team during each of those weeks. So I'm grouping it by week. It's kind of a matrix format, and the color coding is happening automatically to make it easy for me to quickly zero in on which resources had kind of strong weeks and which ones were a little slower. So I can see that information from here, and I've also got a slicer over on the right. We call this a slicer. It lets me just filter the results in the report, which, as you can imagine, if you've got a lot of resources, may be helpful. And you can filter by other fields as well. In this example, I'm just doing it by resource, but you could do it by team or maybe state or however else you would want to segment your resources. But this is really a quick way to just quickly understand how utilized those resources were, which, as I mentioned earlier, could be an indication that maybe we need some more work, or maybe we have too much work. Maybe everyone is too busy, and we need to start looking at hiring additional resources. So you can really make some impactful management decisions from this type of a report. Another dashboard that I have in here is called the Field Service Dashboard. And this one has a couple of different Power BI reports. This first one is actually very similar to the Dynamics 365 dashboard that we looked at earlier. It's another pie chart. So obviously Power BI can do this kind of thing as well. In this example, I'm looking at it based on the number of work orders per customer asset. So this is useful for me to be able to identify which assets we're creating the most work orders for. Maybe that's an indication that these are assets that I'd want to kind of pay closer attention to, maybe do a little bit more preventative maintenance on, or potentially even replace at some point. It's also something, I happen to be looking at a snapshot in time right now, but I could turn this into a bar graph or a line graph that's showing me, the number of work orders per asset over time, and that would give me some insight into kind of how we're trending there. I'm going to scroll down a little bit because I've got another example here showing a map inside of a Power BI report. So this is an interactive map. I can zoom out and see these dots on the map representing where all of our service accounts are. So based on the work orders that I have selected in this list view over here, it's actually showing me based on the latitude and longitude where those are. So I can interact with this map to get a better understanding just geographically of where we're going to be working. And this is a list that obviously I might choose to filter maybe by resource, so I know where a specific individual is going to be on a given day, or maybe I just want to look across the entire team at where all of our work orders are today or tomorrow and make some decisions based on that. These are also visuals that are kind of tied together, so I can click on one of these and the map is going to automatically zoom into that location for me. You can also select multiple records at a time and see both of those selected on the map. So That's another useful feature that you're going to get with Power BI. Another example of a Power BI dashboard is this customer satisfaction dashboard. So I mentioned that first time fix field. That's a field that is custom in this environment, but it is one that we could create and set up to automatically indicate for this work order, did we actually fix it on the first trip out to that service location? Obviously, we would ideally get each of our work orders, if it's a repair, we'd get that resolved on the first trip out. I think that's going to directly relate to customer satisfaction. They're going to, have more confidence in your team if they're coming out and getting it resolved quickly. And if it's a business critical type of repair, that could be the difference between, how quickly they're back up generating revenue or not. So, a lot of potential financial implications coming down to this metric. So this is an important one to keep a close eye on. In this sample database, we can see that in this first week we had 100% that were fixed the first time, which is great. But then over time, we can start to see that starting to tail off. So that would obviously raise some concerns. Could be an indication that we have maybe a process issue. Maybe we're not bringing the right jobs or the right parts to the job site, or it could be a training issue, right? Maybe our team just isn't quite experienced enough to handle some of these work orders and could use some additional training. So, like I said, this is a definitely an important dashboard from a customer satisfaction perspective. But when we think about customer satisfaction, another great way to measure that is just to go directly to our customers, right? Ask them about their experience working with our service organization. And fortunately for that, Microsoft has a solution that they call Customer Voice that can be used for creating surveys. Obviously, there's lots of survey tools that are out there, but one nice thing about Customer Voice is you can integrate it directly with Dynamics 365 Field Service. So if you're surveying your customers, you can get those surveys sent out to your customers based on the contact list that you have in your field service database. And as they submit those responses are also going to come right back into field service. So I would definitely consider using customer voice for those surveys that you're likely sending out after providing some kind of a service. So here's an example of one that asks a customer for feedback. You can see there's different types of questions. Here's a question where they're assigning you a number of stars. Here's an option set type of drop down. Here's a matrix. This is open text. We can add additional questions. We've got lots of different types of questions. Maybe I just want a simple, how likely are you to recommend us? Right, and then it's actually suggesting certain options like very likely, somewhat likely, very unlikely. So that's nice. So I can easily add that question. And when I'm ready to send this out, it's just a matter of going to the Send tab and saying, I want to email this out, or I can do an automated process. I can give out QR codes or embed it within my website. But if I want to email this out, I can come in here and just start searching for a contact that's in my database and notice that it's automatically finding Jim because he exists as a contact in the system. So I can easily send this out to him. Just hit the send button. It'll go directly to his email where he can respond to that. And as I mentioned, those responses are going to be able to come directly into Dynamics 365 Field Service where I'm able to view that. I'm also going to get access to some analytics from directly within Customer Voice. So as those responses come in, I can click here and get some reporting information, again, lots of bar graphs, pie charts, things like that, letting me at a glance see what kinds of responses I've been getting to this survey. So again, very useful tool for being able to just go directly to your customers and ask them about how we're doing as a service organization. So hopefully this has been helpful. If you need to reach out to us or if you have any questions for whatever reason, here's plenty of different ways to get in touch. We would love to hear from you. I hope that, like I said, you found this informative and I really appreciate you joining for today's session. Thank you.